More with Mike Schmitz and Obsidian. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by Headspace. Meditation made simple. Visit headspace.com/MacVoices for a free 1-month trial. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is part 2 in a 2-part conversation with Mike Schmitz, as he gave us a demo of Obsidian, a new note-taking application that really is a whole lot more than a note-taking application. In part 1, Mike explained why he went in search of a new solution and how he found Obsidian and started his demo. This time he continues the demo, shows us more of the power of Obsidian, and also relates it to his analog note-taking system. So let's go right back to Mike. If you would go back to the code snippets a little bit, I think that's going to be something that is potentially intimidating for folks.
Sure.
Especially anyone who has never looked underneath a web page, and say, "Oh, wait a minute, coding. Oh, that's not my thing."
Yes.
How do I learn to code these plugins?
Sure. So this actually isn't. Maybe it is code, but basically what it's saying is this is a code block. The 3 backticks and then tracker, that is saying this is a code block and this is associated with the tracker plugin. And then these parameters and things, I don't know that these are based off of any sort of language. These are just looking at, for every one of the plugins, they have their own GitHub site. And just looking at the README, and they explain this is how you use this plugin. And not every plugin is this complicated, by the way. A lot of them, you don't need these code snippets at all. But the way that you would find these is you would just go to the community plugins again. You're going to browse. And then for something like Tracker, let's take a look at this. Okay, I click on this, and here's an example of what it can do. And then here are some of the things that you can use and how to install it and how you actually use it. Here's an animated GIF. This is walking you. It's kind of like a video walking you through how to do it. So you don't need to know really any of this stuff. You can figure it out in the documentation for each one of these things.
Again, so the more we go through this, the more I start to understand the questions you said you were going to ask back to me, because it feels like just looking at this with the examples you've shown me, I could do a whole lot of things. It's just a matter of where do I want to start and what do I want to keep track of?
Yeah, and ultimately the place to start is simply still just capturing your ideas in those notes. That's what this inbox folder is for me. So this is actually that was from an example, but this is captured from drafts. And because this all sits on my Dropbox folder, I use drafts because it is the quickest and easiest way to capture things. And then I create an action which takes that note in drafts, because drafts has its own library. It's not a bunch of files in Dropbox. That would be the ideal version. But what it does is it takes that note and it puts it into my inbox folder. And then from here, I can take this growth, not grind idea, and that's going to become an article. I'm not ready to flesh that out quite yet, so it sits in here until I'm ready. But these are kind of the notes that I haven't done anything with yet. And that's really the first step, is just having a place to capture these things. But then the real magic happens in Obsidian as you develop them, because just capturing them, that's not, for me anyways, that's not good enough anymore. If you want a dumb application that just looks at a whole bunch of text files in a folder, you can find a lot of them that will do that. Then you click on them and then you can edit them. But as you edit them, it is absolutely worthwhile to take a little bit of extra time and figure out where are the other places that I can create hooks into other notes, ideas, thoughts that pertain to this thing that I am working on.
If you would, this is more of just my personal curiosity. Can you go back to your home note or home? Because that is an interesting concept there, that it's a home note.
Yeah, and this is still in development. I mentioned Nick Milo earlier, Linking Your Thinking. He has a great YouTube channel where he explains a lot of this stuff, but I actually went through his workshop. And the home note is just as it sounds. The idea behind this is like, this is the place that you start if you don't know where you want to go. You're just sort of navigating your notes, which even that probably sounds weird to people who are used to the traditional dump things in a filing cabinet approach to note taking. But this is, yeah, this is intended to be the starting point, and then the MOCs. These are essentially like workbenches where I am actively developing notes on specific topics. So this is kind of the stuff that is exciting to me at the moment, and again, very much a work in progress. So the habits one is really the only one that has anything worth sharing in it.
I so I'm looking at this and I'm trying to translate this into what I would typically do with Apple Notes. So in Apple Notes, um, I might have faith and spirituality, productivity, and ideas as separate notes.
Yep. And you could do that here too. I could create uh, I could create a page out of this simply by putting double brackets around this. Okay, now it's a page, and you got another note or another node in the local graph there. But that's really the cool thing about this is you can set this up any way that you want. This is a nested bullet list, but I could also organize these in folders using the File Explorer over here on the left, or using tags over here on the right.
So what I'm seeing is, and I'm looking at one, two, three, four different views of your notes, just looked at different ways.
Potentially, yep. And that is that can be empowering and also scary for someone who thinks like, well, every note that I capture now, I have to decide where I'm going to put it, and I have to decide what tags I'm going to assign it. Not at the beginning. At the beginning, just capture it, stick it in a specific folder, and then if you never get back to it, then it wasn't that important. But if you do find yourself stumbling into this thing a bunch, then it's worth developing that note and making it more valuable every time that you touch it.
Hmm. Something else, and again, it's so everyone understands. Would you go back to your Bible?
Sure.
I'm not sure what the phrase is.
Well, let me start here with the sermon notes, because this is the reason for the way that I have it set up, the way that I have it set up. And actually, I'll walk you through creating a new one here. I have been taking sketch notes of sermons that I attend for several years now, and I wanted to build my own cross-reference library. So I have notes that reference a specific verse. I want to be able to see all the other notes that I've taken that reference that verse at the same time. So I would do something like this. Again, I'll put the front matter here, and these are just tags. So we'll put sermon notes and sketch notes. And then I'll drop in the image file, which this is actually, you probably can't see this, but this is in drop zone. And then I'll put a header here for scriptures. Now, I can't actually see any of this at the moment, so I'll hold the command key and open up. All right, so there's my sketch notes, and then create links here for the different verses, Deuteronomy 6:5, and then I will embed those individual notes. This is kind of getting what you were asking about with the Bible notes. So these are, every verse is its own note, and you can embed instead of like double brackets is link, you put an exclamation point at the beginning, and this is now embed, and I can search for this note. You can kind of see what's happening on the right side here as I do this in real time, and I'll build it out that way. And what this allows me to do then is I can go into a note like this one, for example, and I can click on this link here for Hebrews 4:12, or maybe this is a better one, Romans 12:1 and 2. I know I've got a bunch of connections to this. Okay, so when I click on the link here for this specific verse. This is my local graph here. These are all the other notes that I have taken that reference this this specific verse, and I can click on these. I think if I command click on them, then I can open up new panes. Yep. All right, so I can open up all of these if I wanted to. Let's go back to Romans 12. Let's open up this one. And I'm building out my own workspace here with all of my notes like side by side. And you can rearrange any of these. I could actually drag this, if I wanted to move these around, I could drag this down like this. You can create your own workspaces basically. And then I can study all these things side by side. It's not, I took these notes in 2018 and I forgot about them because I have like that common language that links them together. I can go to that and then I can resurface these things and see them all in context.
And thank you that you kind of went exactly where I wanted to, because when you said the Bible with each verse in its own note, I wanted to ask you about that because that seemed to be a bit of overkill. But now I understand how or why you would want to do that from the linking standpoint.
Yep. That's an important aspect of Obsidian is you want to make, they're called atomic notes. Atomic meaning basically you can't make it any smaller, right? So what you want to do is you want to take your notes for your entire book, for example, and you want to rip out all the individual pieces for things that are important that you may link to in other places. And you can do that in real time as you go. There's another plugin called Note Refactor, which allows you to take a section from a note, hit a keyboard shortcut. That note is now its own note, and in its place is a link to the page for the new note. And also, all of these links between these different pages, these update in real time. So if I went and I changed the name of this page, Dr. James Willoughby, because that's the person, my pastor, who preached this specific message. If I went to his page and renamed it, this link would automatically be updated. I don't have to go back here. That's not a broken link because I changed the name of the note that it was linking to. And really the value in this, that was my specific use case that I wanted to figure out how to do. But everybody has their own version of that where it's like, wouldn't it be great if, and you've never been able to build that thing. Well, with Obsidian, you've got the building blocks, kind of like a bunch of productivity Lego that you can use to build whatever sort of system that you want.
All right, so let's have a little fun. I'm going to ask you to, I'm trying to figure out what the right phrase is here. Okay, so I'm going to have a meeting with you and 3 others, and I want to take notes from the meeting in Obsidian. So first of all, where do I start?
I would recommend you probably have a meeting notes folder.
Okay.
Which you can, go to the File Explorer and click New Folder. You can add subfolders if you had like this is a specific team that we're a part of. You might have a separate folder for individual teams. I'm going to create a new note then. And let me clean up some of this other stuff here so it's easier. Okay, we'll call this Meeting Notes 5/17/21. Whatever sort of title, however you want to organize these things. And then maybe attendees. We got Chuck Joyner. We got Mike Schmitz. Let's get Mike Potter in here. He doesn't exist yet. Create that one. All right. Maybe there's an agenda. What did we talk about? And then essentially I'm just making a bullet list. I'm making a markdown formatted bullet list, but all of these links allow me to say all these people, they were linked to this meeting where we decided this sort of thing. And then when it's time to interact with it, I switch from edit to preview mode. One of my favorite ways to do this, by the way, is if you hold down Command here, you can open this in a new window. So I'll have, the edit mode on the left and the the preview mode on the right, and then as it updates in real time.
Okay. And so as we go through here, oh boy. So put if you will, put in under agenda bookworm. I'm cheating by looking at your other list there, but just
All right.
okay. So now I've got bookworm in there. So now I could go over to the preview mode, click bookworm, and it comes up with everything that is every time, every instance bookworm has been entered in or is included in any of the other notes.
Well,
Anywhere on the
this will link to the bookworm page. So in the local graph here, what we have is a link to the bookworm page right here. The
okay.
bookworm page probably doesn't have anything related to it for this particular meeting, but it doesn't really matter because it doesn't have to. I'm not embedding anything from that page. I'm just saying this is what we talked about. So
Right.
there is a connection here. It's just not a real strong connection, and that's
Right.
fine. I still have the link there. I can still see, well, we talked about it on this day, but I didn't need anything from that bookworm page to be in here. Otherwise, I would have embedded something instead by putting an exclamation point in front of it.
Okay. Okay.
One other thing I should show you here before we run out of time, and this is the primary way that I am using Obsidian these days is for writing. It is a phenomenal writing tool, which that would be the biggest reason I would give people for looking at it as like if you take notes with the intention of developing these things and creating in any way, shape, or form, writing is going to be a great way to do that. And in the past, I would use something like Ulysses for this. And I could link to Ulysses Sheets for that, but actually, I do all of my writing in Markdown in Obsidian. I use that Kanban plugin that I mentioned before, which looks like this. And this is, again, if I view this as Markdown, just a Markdown based text file. All right. But when we open it as a Kanban, then I can do all sorts of cool things. I can create lists. And with Kanban, if anybody's not familiar with this, it's basically a way of organizing your tasks in swim lanes. And the idea is you go from left to right, and you can have different stages. You might have a review stage. Mine are simple. It's things I'm going to do, things that I'm actively doing, and things that are done. Every week, I'll go in here and I will archive the cards that are in the done list. Okay. And then as I'm working on things, I will move them. This one's actually done. So I'll just drag it over to the done column. This is a link to the article in my articles folder for that specific article. And this is the day that it is due. That means that on May 13th, this showed up in the linked mentions. All right. So for example, let me click on this 5/18 one. This is tomorrow. Okay. So this is the note for 5/18. And if we open up the sidebar, okay, so my note here for 5/18, the linked mentions, it's going to tell me, hey, you need to do that task for the voice memos roundup. And so that's essentially looking through all the tasks that are in Obsidian now, because that's what this formatting is, the dash space, left bracket, space, right bracket. That indicates a task that can be completed. And it's showing me that those are all the ones that are due on this specific day. All right. So jumping back here to the Kanban board, though, if I click on one of these, like let's just look at the power of the local graph for an example here. All right. So here's the article, and I just have image placeholders in this one because I usually add those when I upload it to WordPress. But there are it does render those as well. So let's find another one. This one I think has images. Okay, click on preview. Yep. So this is what my article looks like using Markdown formatting, and then I will write that here. And when I'm done, I will just copy this, paste it into WordPress, hit publish.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by Headspace. Headspace is meditation made simple. Headspace is meditation made simple. You know that. But Headspace is so much more than just a meditation app. Because Headspace asks you what you want to achieve, they get right to the heart of the matter, giving you the results you're looking for. Better sleep, less stress, better focus. Those are just a few of the areas that Headspace can help with. Headspace is the first meditation app that I've tried that I wanted to stick with because of their approach. It feels practical and efficient while delivering the results I want. No ceremonies, no philosophies, just results. Backed by 600,000 five-star reviews and over 60 million downloads, Headspace is something you should try no matter what your goal. You deserve to feel happier, and Headspace is meditation made simple and more. Go to headspace.com/MacVoices. That's headspace.com/MacVoices for a free 1-month trial with access to Headspace's full library of meditations for every situation. That's the best deal offered right now, so head to headspace.com/MacVoices today. Thanks to Headspace for their support of MacVoices. Michael, let's talk about a couple of the dirty questions. Obviously, you're extremely proficient with this, and there's a lot of stuff in here already. What kind of learning curve is there? And you're probably going to come back and say, well, what do you want to do with it?
Yeah.
I get that. I get that. But just to learn all the abbreviations, the three dashes and what kind of timetable are we talking about to get up and running and be effective? Maybe this is the best
Sure.
word.
Well, let's start from the very beginning, assuming that you know nothing about Markdown. It would take a couple of hours probably to understand some basic Markdown formatting. So when I'm talking about Markdown, I'm talking about a simple way to do writing for the web specifically, but there's a lot of text editors that support Markdown, which have honestly been what I've been using for writing for a long time, not just stuff for the web, but anything that I do. So for example, this is an HTML code, but a website can understand this. When you have one bracket, a word, a right bracket, and then parentheses in a URL, that says it's a link. Okay, so this is how you would add a link. If you want to bold text, then you just put, see if I have anything here, double stars on either side of the words that you want to make bold, or a single star for something that you want italicized. Like then right here, that is, you can see that that's italicized. You can also see it in the preview, but it's also giving me a live preview even in the edit mode as I write this. That's the place to start. Okay, so Markdown formatting, and then just throw notes in here and then continue to develop them. You really don't need to know even how to link the different pages, because you could theoretically just open the things up and look at these unlinked mentions and add links as you go that way just by clicking on the button. And once you start doing that, you start to understand how those bidirectional links work, and then you'll start to make it your own and you can go in different directions. So probably a couple of hours for some basic stuff like that. And in fact, I am working on a workshop where I am hoping to take people, it's called Zero to Obsidian, for people who have never touched this before, get you using Obsidian to solve a specific problem in your own workflow within a couple of hours. That's the goal.
So let me go back for a second. So right now, if you take your cursor, you put it over Obsidian, the word, and click it. I don't care there or the other, the smaller version, whatever. And then I could, let's see, how am I going to, so I don't see any unlinked mentions of Obsidian there.
Yeah, so this,
and yet there are obviously lots of mentions of the word Obsidian all over the place.
yes. So the linked mentions, this is showing the links to the note, which is actually, this whole title is Appending Drafts to Daily Notes in Obsidian. So that phrase is not found anywhere in my Obsidian library. But if I found something smaller, like Timular, we would probably find, yep, so here's some different spots where I've got mentions of the Timular app. And this is a separate article that I had written. If I wanted to make this a link, all I have to do is click this. Now, when I do this, watch what happens. The unlinked mentions right now says 3. But when I click it, Now there is one linked mention, there is two unlinked mentions, and there's a dot in my local graph.
Got it.
And for people who don't want to ever take their hands off the keyboard, the way that you would do that is just put that word inside of double brackets, and then that creates the link.
Okay. And to go way back to the beginning. So right now, this is a Mac app. There are iOS or iPadOS apps in development.
Yes. So this is actually, I believe it's an Electron app. It doesn't feel like an Electron app, but it is not a native Mac app. You can download it from the website is obsidian.md, and the core app is completely free. So if all you wanted to do was point it at a folder full of text files on your Mac, then you can use it for free. You have to pay for a couple of additional services like the sync if you wanted to use their sync service. You don't have to use their sync service. You can sync via Dropbox. I have mine actually syncing to Dropbox, and I do some crazy stuff like back up that whole Dropbox folder to GitHub periodically. But you don't have to get that nerdy with it. Even all of the plugins, so all of the core plugins and the community plugins, these are actually free. The only thing that you would pay for would be if you wanted to sync things using Obsidian's service, or they also have one called Publish, where you can choose parts of your vault here, they call it, and you can choose which notes you want to publish, and then you can go kind of navigate this on the web.
Okay. This is, I have to tell you, this is not at all what I expected or understood it to be. This has been very, very enlightening. And the one other question I did want to ask you, and partially in jest, partially in seriousness, is listen, with lockdown time, I don't know how long ago this was, but at one point, I know you had been working on an analog solution, not a daily planner, but an analog thing. Are you still doing that in conjunction with this? Is that just a whole separate? Yep, there it is.
Right here. Yep.
So you're still using that, but that's a whole separate kind of thing from this.
Yes. So let me kind of explain that, because that I think is at the heart of how I use Obsidian and why this works for me. And I know there's a lot of other people who feel the same way. I've always felt kind of bad about how I've used task managers like OmniFocus. In fact, I did a Learn OmniFocus session with Tim Stringer one time, and there was a bunch of people in there who were like, I can't believe how little you have in here. My task management workflow is not complex. I don't need a bunch of tasks telling me, hey, do this, then this, then this, then this, and this. I could create a bunch of subtasks for each one of those articles that I'm writing. But what I have always wanted was a simple Kanban view where I could move things from left to right that linked to the articles that I was writing. I know when I'm done with that, I'm going to copy that and paste it in WordPress. I don't need a task telling me do that at this day and at this time, especially since with the Suite Setup team that I'm doing this with, that's all happening in Notion anyways. That's how we manage the calendar there. So I want to keep things as simple as possible for moving things forward for me. And kind of the dream is that if there are things due on a specific day, I can tag those tasks in Obsidian. When I go to my daily notes at the beginning of the day, I see the things that are linked there and I transfer those to my fancy notebook. That is my list for the day. I'm not spending time working out of my task manager. I'm using it. I'm using the computer to tell me, hey, this is the stuff that's important. You should be thinking about doing this today. But ultimately, I'm going to choose then the up to 5 things I'm going to work on today. And I'm going to time block those from 7 in the morning until 9 p.m. is the absolute end of my day. After that, I'm going to go to bed. And so all of that is going to happen. I'm going to map all that out in at least 1 hour blocks using my fancy notebook and my fancy pens, which are right over here in a box to the right of me.
Yeah. Again, I think it points to the fact that you're not, to your credit, you're not looking for just a one size fits all solution or a one app does everything solution. You're comfortable with saying, hey, this is good for this is good for that, piecing your own system together, and making it and having it work for you, not you work for it.
Yes. the as I understand the concept of personal knowledge management, which I know has been around for a very long time, I think it's an exciting time for personal knowledge management given the tools that we have available to us and the ways that we can link things together. You don't have to do it using Obsidian. Just as an example, there's a Mac app called Hook, which is pretty awesome, that allows you to connect different files on your computer and not just one directional. You can use it bidirectional. I don't use it for that specific purpose, but I know you can do some crazy stuff with that. The idea, though, for me, as I've been thinking about personal knowledge management, what that all encompasses, it's the ideas that I have, it's the knowledge that I'm accumulating from like the books and things that I'm reading, it's the things that I am creating, it's the things that I have to do. All of these things connect in some way, shape, or form. So I want to select tools that are going to allow me to connect those things, even if they are across different app domains, easily, without sacrificing the ability, without sacrificing the power that I need to get things done. But I also am not just going to chase the next shiny new object because it has this crazy feature. Kind of what I've landed on ever since lockdown started was like, what do I actually need in order to get my work done? And it turns out it actually, a lot of the stuff I was making more complex than it needed to be, and it was causing me to not want to do anything, which I really recognized once everything got shut down. I mean, that was a big emotional emotional jolt to everybody, regardless of, we both know people who have lost people because of COVID. So I'm not equating like what I went through with something like that, but the fact that I now have to work from home every single day with 5 kids who are also here all the time, that's a little bit stressful, at least. And I found myself at the beginning of that, like not wanting to do anything. And so just to kind of get moving again, I had to just eliminate as much friction as I could. And I got some small wins with that. And I've kind of continued that theme now, even as things start to open back up.
That could be a whole separate discussion about the things we've discovered about ourselves and our working processes during lockdown.
Yeah.
Because I know I found some things too that you don't. You've been in momentum mode. They worked before, so you just keep on doing them, and suddenly you realize that, hey, I really don't need that. But we're not going to go there. We'll be here for 2 or 3 more hours.
One last thing on that
Yeah.
topic, though. So, kind of the thing that makes me excited about Obsidian is I do work from home all day, every day, and I have my fancy desk set up here with my M1 Mac Mini, which I absolutely love. And so that was the thing that enabled me to really play with Obsidian and see how it worked. If it had been pre-pandemic, I probably would have been like, well, I need an iOS equivalent. And the iOS equivalent is coming, but it is not there. Actually, the private beta, I'm on the private beta for the iOS app. It's pretty impressive what they've been able to do so far. But I feel like in terms of the development of Obsidian specifically, they've kind of laid out, these are all the features that we want the core app to have, and they've built that solid framework, and people can make their own plugins and you can extend the functionality that way, and it just works. Now it's how do we extend that to the iOS, which again they've done a pretty great job of already. A lot of the community plugins are usable on an iOS version, but not all of them. So they still have some work to do there. But at this point, we kind of know what Obsidian is. And for the foreseeable future, I feel like the team's focus now is on how do we get that stuff to the iOS apps, which doesn't really affect me because I'm using it primarily on my Mac. So I feel like I can sink my teeth into this and feel confident that, this is the tool for me going forward.
And I think you make a great point. And again, we'll try to leave it there. But there was a time that I would have said, yes, I need everything syncing to everything else. And we haven't needed that during lockdown. There will be a time probably, but it made me re-examine, okay, that was sort of one of my defaults. Everything needs to sync everywhere. And now I've determined that, hey, I don't really need everything to sync everywhere. So let's find the best tool for the job, even if it is platform specific on one platform or the other. So
and there's ways around that too, I discovered. So like when I could not sync everything in Obsidian everywhere, I still had everything in a Dropbox folder. Well, there are text editors that sync with Dropbox. So I was able to dump ideas into Obsidian. And then when it was time to actually write them, if I wanted to access those files on my iOS device, I could use something like OneWriter, which looks at my Dropbox folders and makes edits in real time. And I could edit them there. And then all that stuff instantly shows up in Obsidian as well. So it's there for me when I get back to my Mac.
Mike, as always, you're very generous with your time and with your patience in those of us who don't know exactly what we're looking at when you're showing it to us. This has been great. I know you said you were working on that course or webinar or seminar or whatever. Any timetable, and where would people go to find that?
That is going to be on June 1st. I don't have any place I can send you at the moment. Watch thesweetsetup.com if you are interested in finding out more about that. I've been publishing a lot of videos and articles about different things that I've been figuring out with Obsidian over there. So that would be a great next step for people who are interested in this kind of thing. I hope it was valuable. I hope it was helpful. I hope it made sense. I have a tendency to get super nerdy about stuff. So I hope, for people who are not entrenched in Markdown stuff like I am, that they could still pick this up and have fun with it, because I really do believe that this is a insanely powerful app. And I think it's showing what the future of note-taking is going to be. I've already seen other apps start adding some of these like bi-directional linking features. Drafts has this sort of thing now. Craft has this sort of thing. And I feel like this is a really exciting time for note-taking apps. So while Obsidian is definitely the one that I would recommend, I have a feeling we're going to see this sort of thing in a lot of different note-taking apps in the foreseeable future.
Fascinating to watch things develop. Just when you think, what else can they do to note taking? You see something like this, and it's like, yeah, a whole lot more actually.
This is the golden age for note taking.
Yeah, exactly. Social media, where can folks, other than the Sweet Setup, where can folks reach you?
I am at Bobblehead Joe on Twitter, and my personal stuff is at faithbasedproductivity.com.
Excellent. Mike, thanks again so much. We really, really appreciate all the time. You're always welcome back. I always feel like every time you come, I learn something, but I also seem to get homework. I don't quite know how you accomplish that, but you always do it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Yeah, I'm going to go be checking out Obsidian because I can envision at least 3 or 4 problems it solves for me or might solve. So I hope it is of value to you as well. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.